couple of more questions coming in on the women's IPL. Srini, I think there are a couple of questions on the window for the women's IPL. Should it be held simultaneously with the men's IPL, like the 100 is one of the viewers' question. And I think one more had asked us about the salaries. What would be the differential between, the male players, what they earn in the IPL, and the female players in the women's IPL?
Okay, I don't want to walk down the salary path. But I'll come back to since it's been asked. So the window is I mentioned in the Cricket Next story that I wrote that it's just going to be before the start of the men's IPL. So this year, men's IPL is going to start. I think 26th or 27th of March is a Sunday, which is when the first IPL game of the IPL is going to be played. So 3 days before that, women's IPL will end on the 23rd of March. 23rd or 24th of March is when the women's IPL is going to end, which means it's going to start at around the 6th or 7th of March of that month. So technically looking at around 18 days of women's IPL before the men's IPL gets underway. So that's where the window is concerned. Before it's like the same T20 women's challenge that was happening just
Yeah.
before the men's IPL, right? And now pay so much to learn from what Deepthi said and so much to pick from what Deepthi actually brought up. Pay again is one thing. I don't, Shivani, I had done a Twitter thread sometime earlier this year in February or sometime where I had argued that women's cricket, and I meant it, and I said that I don't mean this as any kind of disrespect, that women's cricket needs to be looked at from a CSR perspective, not because of anything else. Because my worry was that you don't start something and then tomorrow you see that it's not working, so you dump it and move on in life, right? So when you're
Hmm.
starting something, there has to be a longevity to it, right? And my whole thought process revolves around sustainability. How can we sustain women's cricket? So okay, it's all very nice that people want to take away, all the fancy things away from the returns from it. Look what I did for women's cricket and everything, which is all fine. That commentary is also important, right? But at the same time, you also need the property to be independent, the property to sustain, the property to not be dependent on sources outside of the game itself, right? And
Hmm.
for that to happen, you got to be very realistic. So forget questions on what's the difference between men's IPL. I for one was not a believer in equal pay for men and women. Not because I don't kind of this thing. You do an equal pay for men and women in some other sphere where education is concerned. This is talented display and people coming and paying to watch something that's happening on the field. Are people paying for it? Not yet for women's cricket the way they are paying for men's cricket. So in that, I don't have any two different ways to look at it.
So basically,
So
what you're saying is that ultimately this is market driven. What the sport makes, ultimately a portion of that goes to how much a player earns. So if there's a
yeah,
difference in how much women's cricket is earning, that difference will show in how much the women cricketers are earning.
yeah.
In fact,
In
one of our
fact,
viewers is saying, does it make sense economically to invest in women's IPL, or is this just an emotional issue? What do you think? Is this sustainable? Is the women's IPL sustainable? Or is BCCI saying that, let's say, we will invest in it for the next 10 years, bring women's cricket to the same level, and then it will become sustainable on its own? What are the metrics here?
100% sustainable. It's a great brand in the making. It is definitely a very, very big brand in the making. Imagine the kind of opportunities that are going to present themselves, like, the kind of opportunities that are going to come around with women's cricket. We till date, we've been looking at these examples as just as an anchor of a front page newspaper story where we feel so good when we say that, look, a woman who's a mother and, like, kind of has been taking care of her family and then finding time for the game, right? These are
Hmm.
the narratives and when we read it on a Sunday morning with a cup of coffee in our living rooms, we feel very good about it. We probably burst out with joy and saying, wow, look, I mean, that's the kind
Hmm.
of story I'd like to read on a Sunday morning, which is all fine. But from a very reality based perspective, is it sustainable? And that's where the value kicks in.
Hmm.
Is it the if you keep the value moderate and if you keep the value at a sustained or rather at a very realistic level, it can be sustained, and then let it prosper and let it sell itself over a period of time. Like, see, men's cricket did not suddenly overnight come to become the billion-dollar property that it is, right? I mean, it
Hmm.
took a long time. And in women's cricket, let's be realistic, the domestic first class circuit of women's cricket is still a very, it's not an organized space across age, and like Dipti mentioned, the tiers and the entry points, and the number of people that she mentioned who came into the game lost their way, and because they were generally such good athletes, went on to pick other spots, right? Would that have happened in men's cricket? No. In men's cricket, if you've never touched a cricket bat, even then you've actually given yourself a chance and said, okay, let me try. Who knows? I can tomorrow
Hmm.
probably have a chance in IPL, right? So there is a difference. So for us to see women's cricket grow, at the end of the day, we have to invest in grassroots. So does BCCI have that kind of vision? I think they do. They're making some right noises here. So let's wait and
Hmm.
watch. But I think that's the way to go about.